Hi there. I'm just doing this video today on a topic that I haven't really covered before, but it really occurred to me today that I've seen so many changes in myself in this area that I thought it was a good idea to make a video about it and see what other people think. So since kind of waking up to everything that's going on in the world, I found that there's been some really, really big changes in me and the way that I kind of live my life. And what probably stands out to me the most is the biggest change is in my social life. So not only have I noticed how kind of introverted I've become, but also just how much more of other people's energy I tend to be aware of and pick up. And for that reason, I've become really quite mindful and very discerning about who I spend my time with. And I think this can be quite difficult for people, particularly if you're used to being quite sociable, and you had sort of like a big group of friends who possibly now you might find that you don't get along with quite as well because they don't want to kind of hear about all the stuff that we found out. They don't get excited about it in the same way, and it actually some responses from people can be quite angry in the face of this information. They just don't want to hear it. They don't want to make changes in the way that they eat, for instance. I mean, for me, because that's one of my main kind of areas of activism and interest is veganism and natural health. So I do tend to talk about those things, and I feel very, very passionate about it, and I speak about it in a very impassioned way, and I find that other people don't necessarily share my passion for that, and they don't necessarily want to hear it, and it can provoke quite angry reactions in people. And I'm not saying I'm going around judging them for what they're eating or kind of even pointing out what they're eating, because I'm not. But I am very interested in having discussions about what's going on in the world and what I see around me. And I think now that my social circle has become much smaller, and that is actually through choice most of the time, because I actually enjoy spending time alone now, in quite a relaxed and contemplative way. So I quite enjoy just the process of just being, and that doesn't necessarily mean meditation, although I do like to meditate, but I would perhaps open up the idea of what meditation is, because it doesn't necessarily have to be sort of sitting down with your eyes closed or lying down with your eyes closed. It can be the process of creating something, or the process of thinking about something in a different way, or whatever really. So I find that my time, I'm much more careful about the way that I spend my time now, and I find that what I enjoy most is something that I would never have thought someone like me would have enjoyed most, certainly a few years ago, before this kind of transition in my life occurred, which is being in nature, in quite quiet atmospheres, not around lots of people. And actually I find that I want to avoid being in noisy atmospheres with loads and loads of people in kind of social situations, and I find it actually very tiring and draining, and I see it as quite closely linked to the awakening that I've had, in that now energetically I'm just so aware of the energies that are around me, and kind of my tendency to absorb other people's stuff, and it's not something that is always enjoyable. I mean, what I do find though is that my need for community has actually become more so, but the kind of people that I want to commune with are definitely those of a like mind. So I do put efforts into connecting with people who are like-minded, but again, those people tend to be kind of quite gentle, quite impassioned people, but about things that I would consider matter. And I mean, I don't really want to be shoving ideas of what matters and doesn't matter down people's throats, but to me that would be taking care of animals, being mindful of the way that I live, caring about the environment, and all of that kind of thing, being in nature and looking after the natural world, being aware of the natural world, being aware of the thoughts that I have and the words that I say and all the rest of it. And it can be quite a lonely place when one's going through these different kind of levels of awareness, because the way it happened for me was that I just stopped watching TV. I stopped eating any animal products, so I went vegan. And then I started to do Kundalini yoga, and that's what gave me the kind of spiritual awakening, which enabled me to understand on an unconscious level the connection between all living things. This was the kind of process that this took for me. I then didn't carry on with yoga. I mean, I don't practice yoga at all, although I understand that it's really, really helpful for a lot of people. For me, it kind of gave me that awareness, and now I tend to kind of look at other things. Like recently I've really, really got into Eckhart Tolle, because I think that he is an absolutely amazing teacher, and I think he's been sent to us to help us and guide us, because the human condition is so prone to projection, and so often we look at the past. And we think, that in some way this is determines the future, or we look at the past with longing, kind of like things were better then than they are now, and we look at the future and we project into the future with fear or anticipation. And as he says, fear and desire, these are two very, very strong human states, and neither of them are particularly helpful. And I think that neutrality is very, very powerful, because from neutrality so many wonderful things can come in, and it's kind of like to be sort of neutral about things, to be present in the moment, through practicing mindfulness, really. So just being kind of aware of your surroundings, taking in what's in your surroundings, and then appreciating the beauty and the workmanship and the things that are around you, and being aware of your senses. So what can you hear around you? What can you see? What can you smell? What can you touch around you? Being aware of those kind of things, which brings you immediately into the present moment, and then kind of going into the body, and what are the sensations that you feel within the body, because the body, although we are spiritual beings having a human experience, we do live in this body, and this body is alive. And if you kind of relax and go into the inner body with your mind, then you become aware of how alive you are and the power that there is within that. And it was a couple of weeks ago, this amazing thing happened to me, where I was just walking down the street, and this happened just completely out of the blue, where I felt so in my own power. It was kind of like I went into the body. I could feel that, that I was alive. I could feel my heart beating. I could feel the blood going around my body. But at the same time, I had this kind of detachment from everything that was around me as well. But I was able to perceive it. And the overwhelming feeling was an empowered one, but not in a kind of like I'm better than everyone else kind of way, but just in a I know that everything's going to be okay. I know that everything is okay. I know that everything is as it should be. And I felt just completely at one with myself. And it was great. It was great. That's all I can say. I mean, I think that what happens during this awakening process is quite, it's an individual journey, but everybody who's experiencing it tends to have certain things in common. Certainly a newfound love of nature and the natural world, and an interest in universal love, which I believe has to come from a centre of self-love. And self-love is something that we all need to obtain, and there's so many self-help books and stuff written about how to raise self-esteem and how to get to a place of self-love, and I really think that one of the best ways to get there is through living your life in the right way. And for me, going vegan and then latterly raw vegan has massively increased my self-love, and being able to tap into a positive energy field where I feel that it just sits right with me. So it is something that I feel really, really strongly about. And it's not that I don't want to be friends with anyone who isn't vegan or isn't raw vegan. I mean, there's hardly anyone there's not many people that are raw vegan, that's for sure. And thankfully, veganism is growing. It's very, very fashionable to be vegan. Loads and loads of people are going vegan, which is wonderful. It's not that I don't want to be friends with anyone who isn't vegan, but I do find that I have much more in common, and that's not just on a sort of physical level, but on a spiritual and energetic level, with people who are aware of what is wrong in the world, and perhaps have some ideas about how we could improve that and make it right, and who are actually taking action in the physical realm in some way to bring about positive change. I actually bought some lands last year, and with a view to creating a kind of off-grid life, which I still am working towards doing, because it's actually a very difficult thing to do, and I didn't realise when I took that on just how difficult it would be. But it's something that I feel really strongly about, and so I love spending time also with people who are interested in alternative ways of living and how we can become sustainable, so that we don't have to depend on the powers that be or the state for our, to take care of us. Because I think it's fairly obvious to those who have a certain level of awareness. It becomes, certainly when you wake up to what's going on, it becomes obvious to you that these structures that are in place, and the powers that be and the government actually do not have your best interests at heart. And so what you need to do is learn to rely on yourself and depend on yourself. And anyone who's seen my videos before will know how passionate I am about natural health and about us getting ourselves into a healthy physical state, so that we can be strong and take care of ourselves and our own families, and not have to depend on the health service or on doctors who have, certainly for a very long time now, pretty much only been capable of pushing drugs and getting us to take pharmaceutical drugs quite often on a long-term basis to counteract diseases that we could, quite easily cure and solve ourselves by a change in diet and lifestyle. So for me, that's something that I'm really passionate about. But coming back to this the whole sort of social side of things, don't be surprised if you do feel that you want to kind of retreat and go into yourself and learn more about who you really are, and gain knowledge on a spiritual level about why you're here and why you're experiencing the things that you are. Because I think people can feel very alone and very isolated with that, particularly if you were in a marriage, for instance, or a long-term relationship where you'd had this awakening but your partner hasn't. That could be quite a lonely place. And so I think it's important to get some acceptance around these kind of periods of loneliness, and almost like you put yourself into a kind of induced isolation from other people, apart from those who have awareness. Because I find that for me, socially, it's a wonderful experience if I'm around other people who have also experienced awakening and are open to different ideas and new ideas, and it's really wonderful and it really energizes you. But if you're around people who are still very much, in a kind of in the sort of mainstream paradigm, it can be really quite exhausting and draining. So don't be surprised if that's the experience that you have. Anyway, I'd really like to hear from other people and to find out what their experiences are after awakening, and how you find it kind of existing within mainstream society. Just one last thing before I go, because I currently live in a city, my need to get out of the city is very intense, and that's another thing that I'm working on doing. But I find that even sort of traffic noise and stuff like that, the way that I process that has really changed. Like now I find it very, very difficult to be around it, and it really, really affects me. And also the speed and the pace, like for instance, the fact that if we work, like most of us have to, and I do, then you've got to set an alarm which artificially wakes you up before your body's ready to do so, because obviously your body knows when it's ready to wake up. So you've got to artificially wake yourself up and kind of get yourself into these clothes that are really, really tight and uncomfortable and kind of strangle you, to go to somewhere that you don't really want to go, to earn money, to pay for a house or a flat that you're not in for most of the day, and blah, blah, blah. That those kind of things will become unacceptable to you, and that you will look for ways to live creatively and in line with nature, in a way that kind of, promotes peace of mind and happiness and creativity and partnership and community with other people who are of a like mind. So all of these changes that you may experience are totally normal and to be expected. Like I said, I'd love to hear from you, see what your experiences have been, so please leave some comments, and if you're seeing this video through Facebook, then you can send me a private message. Please subscribe and please hit the like button. Thanks.